Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel Fanfiction podcast. Today we will continue our journey of What If Orario Went to War Against the One-Eyed Black Dragon Part 3. Before we start, please like, share, subscribe and comment the comment section. Kajona Tamashi, Chapter Summary. News travels almost as fast as Hermes does, but Belle has more important things on his mind. Chief among them is trying to attempt the same feat that Ace Wallenstein accomplished for her. Last level up as his next one. Chapter notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Familia Oratoria Adamichi Fanfiction, Chapter 16, Kajona Tamashi. There was one stop he wanted to make before they went into the dungeon, so he led Aiden to the benevolent mistress in the morning, greeting the maids in a friendly manner before asking if he could talk to Ryu. When the elf appeared, she smiled at him. "Good morning." Belle sparing a look to Mr. Aiden, she nodded politely and bid him a good morning as well. After realizing that he hadn't introduced anyone, he briefly did so for Ryu and Mr. Aiden. "When I get back, we'll all celebrate here together, Ryu," he said seriously, and she returned the sentiment as she paid attention to him. "I'm going on an adventure again." Her eyes widened in surprise. He hadn't slowed down at all, but her expression only made him smile. "When we come back, I want to celebrate here at the hostess. Can you ask Mamma Mia for me?" "Of course, Belle. That will be no trouble at all." "Great, thanks." "Oh, and when we do, there's something I'm going to ask you, but I'll wait until then, okay?" He gave her a close-eyed smile and waved, not waiting for her response as he took off for the dungeon. Heriris held in a chuckle as the elf didn't have much of a response to give other than a bit of flustered bumbling. Instead, he took off after Belle. He had made the boy a promise, after all. Loki Familia and Freya Familia were in very similar predicaments. Their goddesses were unsure of what to do, precisely following the Donatus, and decided to put off making a decision until a later time. Their children, meanwhile, felt an increasing pressure to do something following the guild's announcement. Loki Familia had already been in the planning stages of a major expedition, so they had an outlet for their energy, and Freya Familia. "Huh. Hup, Faga." Otter watched over the training in the gardens of Folkvanger. It wasn't something he normally did, but occasionally it helped him to think. He had long grown past the need to participate in the glorified near-death matches, as they were best suited for lower-level members of the Familia. Instead, the nostalgia of supervising let him organize his thoughts coherently, the primary one for him at the moment being that the guild announcement about Heriris was almost certainly fabricated. "I'm sure there's no way he is level 7, it felt like he was still far above me." It wasn't easily noticeable, but the feeling he got from seeing one of his old teachers again was a shadow in weight, but far more expansive than the foreboding he had facing the predator, gluttony, years ago. Unlike with Mia, who he could clearly feel he had surpassed, he was sure the man had to be at least a high level 8, or 9 even. He was thinking about how he might approach him, given he was now a member of Hestia Familia. If he waited out by the dungeon or anywhere he was likely to cross paths, he would just attract unwanted attention. So, leaving aside chance, the only real option was to go directly to the home of Hestia Familia as discreetly as possible. Then he could either meet or set up a meeting, if things went well. He was sure that he was the only one of Freya's children that was planning about this. The others probably didn't much care, and only Alan might be thinking about it insofar as he might be able to attack the man. He wouldn't go against Freya's orders, but she hadn't told them not to attack him, so it was a possibility, as long as Belle was left alone. Still, Heriris was powerful enough that he didn't need to worry about his vice-captain doing something that would land their Familia in hot water, and so Otter resolved to go pay them a visit at the next opportunity. Even as over a dozen duels of bloodsport raged in the garden. "Alright, so that leaves the initial checks and preparations complete, thank you, Raoul. Now, I want you to watch while we go through the process of developing our strategy for an expedition, based on our logistics and personnel reports." Yes sir, but..." "Why?" "Anna, Kitty, and Cruz have had their introductions already, so that leaves you I mean that I don't follow. Ah, well, hopefully, our familia will continue to grow in both strength and size, yes? We are getting close to the point already, where it will be not only viable, but optimal to keep two distinct forces for dungeon exploration. We already keep lower level members on rotations of small teams to gain experience with veterans, but even among our most elite adventurers, it has become clear that we can expand our capability. The deep levels we have reached are already far larger in area than Orario itself, which means that being able to maintain two independent forces in the same general area will increase our effectiveness more than simply concentrating our forces. I think I see now. You want me, Anna Kitty, and Cruz to head the other group? Well, I was thinking more of mixing everyone up on different trips to improve how quickly you all pick things up. But, eventually, yes, I would like for you three to be able to take over leadership of an expedition group, if need be. Finn and Raoul were interrupted by a knock on the office door. Captain? Come in, Alicia. It's fine, thank you, sir. The beautiful elf closed the door behind her. I completed my investigation. She waited for him to usher he to continue. Before doing so, I'm afraid there wasn't all that much that was available for me. Most of his records are sealed beyond even senior guild officials. What I could get simply confirmed what Loki told you before. He has been a first-class member of Zeus Familia for over 80 years prior to their departure from Orario, at least. His last listed level was indeed 6, apparently having gained that after training the Zeus and Hera executives from the Golden Age. Before he confronted and slew B. Baylor on his own. The recent announcement only said he reached level 7 after spending 15 years in the dungeon. She finished her scarce report, barely giving him anything useful, but it wasn't her own fault. Thank you, Alicia. For now, I want you to focus on the upcoming expedition. We will shelve the matter of Herrera's. Finn bit his thumb, astounded that the records even allowed something like that to be available. Killing Baylor on his own? That seems impossible for a level 5 or even 6. Its threat level is enough that even a full party of level SIXS could level up by confronting him. Understood, sir. She politely excused herself, and Finn sighed, in a rare show of exasperation in front of his remaining subordinate. Captain. I understand that the appearance of this old adventurer presents some issues. But I think overall it doesn't seem like it's much to worry about. You may be right. In the past, he never gave any indication of malevolence whatsoever, but then neither did Zald nor Alfea. Her coming back with him puts me on edge, I suppose. Well, it isn't as if I can't understand some motivations for why they did what they did, but that doesn't mean I agree with it, of course. It might not worry me so much if Riveria, Gareth, and I could just level up. I would at least be more comfortable then. But if he is a level 7, wouldn't one of you be enough? He trained us, you know? Not only him, and he didn't do all that much as far as it goes, but there were several occasions where he handled our instruction. One motto that he had was, an adventurer to grow must be capable of going the distance, beyond the limits of their status. Basically, he tried to get across that one had to fight above their level in order to earn the right to level up. That sounds sort of convoluted, though. Leveling is based on recognition of feats by the gods, right? That's like saying to level up, you have to prove you don't need that recognition anyway. That's an interesting perspective on the matter, but the point is that he practiced what he preached. If he is a level 7, I wouldn't want to seriously challenge him unless I was a high level 8, at least. Crap, so that's why you said you would want all of you to level up. That's right. And I'm hoping that the 3 of us can take this expedition and finally do it. If we can bring down Baylor on our own, it should be enough. It will be very difficult though. Otter has attempted to solo it for his own feat to reach level 8, and didn't manage it, but between the 3 of you, it should be possible. You can still rely on the rest of the familia for support in case you need it, too. Otter has a record of moving about on his own, so he had to worry about getting back to the surface from Baylor's floor. All good points, Raoul. To be honest, I wouldn't have decided this if I thought we would fail. That doesn't mean I'm not anxious. Finn didn't comment on Alicia's previous information, going completely over the man's head. He would need to instruct the high novice for some time yet. So, one goal is for you three to kill Baylor and level up, and our goal in general is to reach floor 62. They made excellent time, even considering that they camped out, won the 18th floor. Aiden went with him past the Water City, where the Amphisbaena had not re-emerged from the last time it was slain, and took him down the main path beyond. He knows that the Xenos had taken his friends, Ryu, and himself out from the 37th floor, but they likely used safer, unknown routes. This was the first time that he was going down the main path to floor 37, finally earning his dungeon reach more properly. Still, the man kept all of the monsters they encountered handled. He wanted Bell to be completely fresh for the battle ahead. Eudias, I know you are already aware, is not to be trifled with. Keep in mind what we discussed. Spartoy will continue to spawn until I bring him down, so I'll need to stay fast and not let up. Once he pulls out his sword, you'll move in to keep the Spartoy at bay, and then I'll be able to focus on him. He's weak to fire-based magic, so my firebolt should be saved to soften him up after he pulls his weapon so that I can use distancing until I can use Argonaut as a finishing blow. Bell reciting, using the lesson that he had given him on the floor, boss as a focus to keep himself calm as they moved through the upper part of the 37th floor. Before he realized it, the other man stopped them short of the throne room, where the Rex would spawn. Alright Bell, take a breath. He actually waited as Bell took several deep breaths, before he continued, take some time and check your equipment. We know your strategy, so make sure all of your weapons, armor, and potions are secure and ready. Remember, if anything goes wrong, I will be able to intervene, but otherwise, I'll stick to the plan, right? Right. He checked his armor, making sure it was properly fastened and tightened up after the trip down, then moved to check where his knives were secured in their sheaths. He also carried a mace attached with a hook and loop at his waist, and the short pike on his back. Blades won't be as effective, the mace will do the most damage, unless I can attack his core. I can use them if I get close to his back. His potions were in place, and he was as fresh as he could be. I'm ready. Aiden smiled at the steel in the boy's voice, his respect growing at witnessing his mettle for himself. Good, I'm right behind you, Captain. With a nod, Bell stepped into the last area of the floor. A vast, dome-shaped room held nothing but pale stone and a massive, ebon-bone torso of a skeleton. Eudias is known as the Lord of the Spartoy, and had two black horns that sprouted out of his skull, like some kind of monstrous crown. Bell grit his teeth as the red glow within the eyeless pits of the massive skull focused on him. Eudias was unique among monster Rexes, as his spine was attached to the floor of his room. It gave him a definite range, unless one shattered his back at the ground, which was one viable tactic. His magic stone core was visibly exposed as well, floating where the heart would be if he were a person, and nearly the size of Bell himself. He continued forward as Aiden stood by the entrance, watching. Once he got close enough, the monster Rex roared at him, shaking the room with the noise, and he took it as a starting gong. Mace in hand, he dashed straight ahead, baiting Eudias to attack him with his hands. Dodging by as slim a margin as possible, he could see why it was considered a level 6 threat despite being fixed to the floor. Its speed and power easily exceeded the Black Goliath that had needed a small army of adventurers to take down. Luckily, Eudias lacked the regeneration ability that the irregular Rex possessed. Grah! He swung the mace, crafted by Welf from a combination of dir adamantite and blue crab shell, cracking into the hands and arms of the Rex as he weaved around its strikes. As he dodged, he could tell that taking one blow wrong could knock him out just like one of A's kicks, so he prioritized evasion over his attacks, sometimes having to stop a strike short, or dodge multiple attacks before he had an opening to try again. Still, his progress was slow, and the Spartoy were beginning to spawn. The skeleton soldiers would do so continuously at a slow rate, until Eudias was defeated. Despite being on par with a level 4 adventurer, Bell's ability and recent experience against them made him able to thin their numbers and evade them as he continued to whittle away at their leader. Horus had said that it would take a significant amount of damage to get to the next phase, so he decided to take a shot as the Spartoi numbers were starting to swell. His pike flew from his hand like a dart, sinking into the glowing, red joint of one of the monster's damaged arms at the shoulder, with him following it. He dodged another punch, and used the arm to climb toward the shoulder, pulling his mace back for as hard a blow as he could manage. Like a hammer hitting a nail, the mace shot the pike deep into the dark bone, shattering it and causing Eudias' arm to crumble away, even as it swiped Bel from the air, launching him across the large room. Another ear-splitting roar shook the room as he managed to stand, seeing Eudias pull forth a huge black blade. Almost in an instant, the whole mass of Spartoi were eliminated, but he still had to avoid the spear-like bone spines Eudias sent out. He downed a potion as he circled it, taking advantageous shots, with firebolt, mostly aiming for its core. However, even with his distancing, Eudias swung its blade, and a shockwave shot out in an arc from it all the way to the far wall of the room, crushing him into it. Gaha. Well, the size of the room makes sense now. He got his feet beneath himself, and ran off again, taking more shots with firebolt in an attempt to overwhelm the Rex and put it on the defensive. As Eudias guarded its core and eyes, he closed in. Through dozens of magic attacks, he could feel his mind steadily draining, even as he downed another potion. He sped up, casting over 100 firebolt shots as he closed in. Before he started to charge his skill, Eudias took notice of the lack of fire and prepared to attack again, only to find no target. Save for a distant Heriris, but it was aware of the one that had been fighting it, and that they were two different opponents. Roaring in anger, it swung at the other adventurer anyway, only to recoil as the shockwave failed to shift him. Meanwhile, Bel tried to keep himself quiet and behind the monster, remaining in its blind spot, but Argonaut wasn't a silent skill, so when its gentle chime started to sound, it gave him away, as Eudias swung itself around in surprise. He managed to dodge the first attack and started into a match of close combat just as intense as his battle with Asterius. Like the bull, even the wind off of Eudias' sword was deadly, so he didn't just need to dodge the blade, but the entire path of the attack itself. The minutes dragged on like cold syrup as this continued, until finally, a great bell sounded out as he reached the limit of Argonaut. He needed to attack soon, or he would have to release it. A limit off might take Eudias down, but he would be comatose whether it did or not. Pulling back, he tried to bait it into a big attack, but it kept going, for swipes which allowed it to attack fairly quickly over and over. He destroyed the pike with his attack earlier, so all he had now were the mace and his knives. Before, he had expected to try Argonaut with his mace, but now he realized that he was going to need to use it with a firebolt or let it release. So he did exactly that. Firebolt. A bright beam went faster than an arrow right at the monster's head. Unprepared for the new attack, Eudias took it head-on, its body forced back as the ground shattered. Its own back crumbled as it was tossed back with a mighty crash into the ground. Panting in exertion, Bel dropped his arm, but noticed that the Rex was still whole despite the attack, so he cautiously moved forward, gulping down his last potion as he gripped his Hestia, knife in one hand and the mace in his other. Sure enough, it began to stir, awkwardly rolling until it shifted onto its side, giving him a view of its half-destroyed skull, literally the right side of it being completely gone, while the left horn had broken off. Oh! With an enraged roar, Eudias contorted its body and coiled as a means of stabilizing itself. In its rage, it hurled the sword at Bel, which glanced off his attempt to dodge it, flinging him to the side like a ragdoll. He was beaten and ragged, but Eudias was out of reach and without its sword. He charged Argonaut again. This time a shorter duration, but a dual charge. One more attack. Logically, he should have repeated his attack from earlier, having the advantage of distance, but he wasn't thinking purely on logic. He gripped the mace tightly. Once he had enough power, he ran as fast as he could, aiming straight for the base of the monster skull. It tried to swipe him away, but compared to its earlier attacks, it was feeble, and adrenaline pushed his own body, like the last time he had been on this floor. He closed in to attack. And Eudias tried to throw itself back in a final attempt to crush him. Reacting on instinct, he swung the mace up at its head, releasing Argonaut's first charge as the mace impacted, creating a shattering boom as the monster was bodily knocked into the air by its head. He charged a few moments more, as it rotated until he could see the remaining red glow in its soul, eye socket. Bracing his arm, he roared at it, "Firebolt!" The weaker attack was still enough to destroy Eudias, finally, ending the battle. Bell collapsed as the floor was covered in a huge cloud of dust from the monster Rex, as its core thudded to the ground. He wasn't sure how long he took to collect himself, but at some point, he looked up to see the other man beside him. "I already collected all the drops and stones." Bell, that was amazing. He crouched down beside him and circled an arm around his shoulders. "Now I can begin to understand some of what Fels was talking about with you. I didn't realize they still made adventurers with balls as big as yours." He chuckled as he helped Bell to his feet. "While we're down here, do you want to take a peek at the next floor, or head back up?" After a moment, he smiled. It wasn't like any monsters were coming up behind them. Let's take a look. Chapter End Notes, another multi-chapter update. We are approaching the ending of the first arc, and beginning of the second, but I wanted to get as much posted as I could before I have to go. Mace up at its head, releasing Argonaut's first charge as the mace impacted, creating a shattering boom as the monster was bodily knocked into the air by its head. He charged a few moments more, as it rotated until he could see the remaining red glow in its soul, eye socket. Bracing his arm, he roared at it, "Firebolt!" The weaker attack was still enough to destroy Eudias, finally, ending the battle. Bell collapsed as the floor was covered in a huge cloud of dust from the monster Rex, as its core thudded to the ground. He wasn't sure how long he took to collect himself, but at some point, he looked up to see the other man beside him. "I already collected all the drops and stones." Bell, that was amazing. He crouched down beside him and circled an arm around his shoulders. "Now I can begin to understand some of what Fels was talking about with you. I didn't realize they still made adventurers with balls as big as yours." He chuckled as he helped Bell to his feet. "While we're down here, do you want to take a peek at the next floor, or head back up?" After a moment, he smiled. It wasn't like any monsters were coming up behind them. Let's take a look. Chapter End Notes, another multi-chapter update. We are approaching the ending of the first arc, and beginning of the second, but I wanted to get as much posted as I could before I have to go back into work tomorrow night. We'll see how it goes, but I should be able to post some more this weekend. Co-Satan, Chapter Summary. Completing yet another adventure, Bell and Aiden return home, and we get the conclusion to the ordeal of his slaying Eudias. Still, more things change than Bell's level, and soon, more changes will be coming down the line. Chapter Notes, see the end of the chapter for notes. Familia Oratoria Adamici Fanfiction, Chapter 17, Co-Satan. The return trip was a bit surreal to Bell. After taking only a short look into the descent of the 38th floor safe zone, Aiden took him back up toward the 18th floor where he could get a proper rest. He did stop on the way, looking into the room that held the Colosseum, and saw that it remained destroyed. Either the dungeon was not going to regenerate it, or it was taking time. Either way, he felt oddly calm, and mentioned about the small safe area beneath the destruction in the room. "Then we can take a short break there. When you feel up to it, we can go up to the 18th with haste." So that's what they did. He led the man into the almost hidden way, through and around a good amount of rubble and dust, then finally into the small cavern. "It's almost like a natural cave in here." Interesting. They took drinks from the stream and both relaxed for a short while. Not wanting to delay though, they set out soon after. Thanks to the break, Bell was able to travel quickly and confidently after his last battle. He knew he hadn't earned the right to say he had conquered the 37th floor, but slaying a monster, Rex, or anything as powerful as Eudias was bound to give any adventurer a dungeon high. Between the two of them, Belle and Herrera set a record pace, back to the under-resort. Collecting a decent amount of stones, and drops to add to their haul as they went, but only from monsters that had been directly in their path. Able to relax more properly, they set a small camp before bathing and preparing. Some food, basic rations mixed with dungeon forage, but it was hot at least, so pretty good overall. With some food in him, Belle was out like a light, and slept for what was probably about 4 hours before waking up feeling very refreshed. Awake? Excellent, your clock is fine-tuned, Captain. I've nearly broken camp, just need to put away your effects and we'll be ready. I wonder if Goliath has spawned. Well, not like it'll be an issue since we've rested. Belle wasn't sure Aiden actually slept, but it probably didn't matter much for him. With a higher status, a person could push themselves past all sorts of limits. He could probably go a week or more without sleeping at all at his level. Once they had put away their camp, they continued up, but as they got near the way up to floor 17's exit, they saw some figures up ahead. Guess that means he's been taken out for now. Yeah, wait. Ms. Ace? Amen, seems it's Loki Familia. As the group got closer, it was clear to see it being led by a handful of Loki's famous executives, and they were easily noticed themselves. Ace was with the leading group, and ran forward as soon as she noticed him. Herrera's tensed for a moment before it was clear that she wasn't reaching for a weapon. Belle, I thought you were working on a mission in the middle floors? Ace was giving him a small smile despite her question. She spared a glance to the other man, but put her whole attention on her friend, expectantly. Oh. Air. Well, we finished up with something else down below, so we're heading back up to the surface now. Before Ace could respond, the rest of the group with her caught up to them. Hey, Argonaut. Tiona cheered, jumping forward to grasp Belle's arm to herself. She, Ace, and Lafia talked to the boy as Aiden smiled at the scene for a moment. He had noticed that only Riveria and Finn were with the group as they approached him. Like the younger girls had Belle. Greetings, Horace, or I should say Herreras. It may not be the ideal situation, but as the captain of Loki Familia, you have my congratulations. The Paolum extended his hand, which he politely took. My thanks. Though I find that the new title sits oddly, still. I can understand somewhat why, though. The will of the gods. Riveria sighed in agreement. Still, congratulations all the same. It is no small accomplishment you have earned. At that, he smiled, knowing the public version of events. Until he conferred with his goddess, he would need to be careful about what he spoke of course, though I can see in your eyes, Finn, Riveria, the intention to climb that next step, too. They smiled at him with some pride, and he saw no reservation in their expressions. We are well at the point to take an adventure. Our whole familia is on expedition, but for Gareth, Riveria, and I, the aim is a bit higher. Finn nodded. I see. Baylor, then? At their confirmation, he nodded. Certainly, you are ready, but be warned, if a small enough group attacks him, like Eudius, he draws a weapon forth. When equipped with that great axe, I would put his threat at a high level, 8, bordering upon level 9, as opposed to a low level 8. Riveria's face took a serious expression. Thank you for your advice on this. They knew the value of such information. The only other person who might know it was the king, Otter. We will keep it in mind, though at the risk of boasting I will say that we will still be up for the challenge. Ha 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 ha. From what I've heard, you've all earned the right to a little boasting. Riveria, Finn, so we have spoken of our business. Finn looked up at him, his eyes shining in mischief at the obvious move, and he returned the gesture in good faith. You aren't the only ones who planned an adventure. My new captain was ready to have a go himself. He laughed a bit at their shock, but Finn quickly showed his own exasperation. His pace amazes me. To think he would already be going after level 5. Indeed, rabbit foot fits him well, doesn't it, Herreras? In many ways the man gave his own mischievous smile, sighed, eyeing the boy surrounded by the female junior executives of the other familia, but I can assure he has reached it. He was successful in slaying Eudius. That earned him such expressions from the two that he burst forth in laughter again, getting the attention of the others. As you can expect, we will be planning a celebration soon. Once you return from your expedition, I would enjoy it if we could do so together. If my new familia is in agreement, well, perhaps that might be arranged. Finn agreed, but that will depend upon our own goddess Loki. That is fair, of course. If she needs convincing, tell her that if Lady Hestia agrees, I will freely offer a single session of training to your familia for one whole day. His statement caught the interest of both executives, knowing the value of such a thing. Finn also suspected deception in the announcements around the newly dubbed Heriris. His goddess silence put weight on his thinking. If he was stronger than was allowed to be commonly known, then this potential training would be even more beneficial, not to mention the benefits that might come with being able to be around the man for a whole day simply talking to him. I will ensure she is aware of that. Well then, should I go on ahead, Captain? You seem to be having a good time over there, he called out teasingly to Belle, who flustered a bit, having been caught with Tiona and Lafia pulling him in opposite directions while Ace was pouting for some reason. The elf let him go like he was on fire, accusing him of misunderstanding something, but this caused Belle to be pulled into Tiona and the two to stumble over together. The Amazon took this in stride and squeezed him in a hug. Yeah, Argonaut, stay down with us for a bit. The others will get here later, but we're gonna camp here like usual before we dive down to the deep levels. Well, I'd like to miss Tiona, but Mr. Aiden and I were already heading back up, and we told our familia we would be back soon. Before we left, just a bit? She wobbled her lip at him, taking joy in his, admitting that he did want to stay with them longer, before being joined by Ace, who crouched by the two, still pouting at him. Nearly overwhelmed by the two-pronged assault, he was only saved by Riveria, who scolded the girls. They took it in stride for the most part, and Belle shot a betrayed look at his companion, who avoided the look judiciously, before smiling at the others. It was good to see you all, but we really do need to get going. Best of luck on your expedition. Belle bowed slightly. His farewell matched by Aiden as the Loki familia saw them off. As they went, they passed some of the rest of Loki familia and other groups of adventurers, but it didn't take long at all until they emerged into the large atrium that formed the entrance to the dungeon. Sighing as he popped his back and arms, Aiden grinned down at Belle. Where to first, Captain? Definitely Ms. Ina. If I don't, she'll skin me alive with a super long lecture the next time I see her. Right then, let's shake a leg, he said as they made for the stairs leading up and out. His advisor really has him wrapped around her little finger, too, huh? I guess it makes sense that one of Zeus and Hera would be so popular. They made their way directly to the guild, and were spotted as soon as they had gone inside. Ina, having been made aware of the purpose for their trip, had been somewhat anxiously awaiting the return, and was the first to spot the pair. Belle, you're back. Welcome back, both of you, eh? Bit embarrassed at her outburst, she calmed down in addressing the two as she approached them. Ahem, does your return mean you were successful? His eyes shined with pride and happiness. Yes. Well, since it's just the two of you, would you like to come to a booth to give your report now? She returned his earnest smile with her own. That's fine with me. Do you want to come with us, Aiden? I can go ahead and turn in our hall, since it will take some time, but I think you should hold on to Eudia's sword drop. We'll have a field day with it. Sure, that sounds good to me. They parted as Belle and Ina went off, and he stepped over to the exchange area. After waiting for a couple others, he moved up to the counter where a familiar voice and face greeted him. Heriris? Ms. Rose, good day to you. You can guess why I'm here, but I can assure you that I have not brought nearly as much as last time. Well, that's a relief. She slouched behind the protective barrier, sighing. All right. Let's see what you have. He turned over all of their magic stones and most of the monster drops, save for what he thought would be useful to Welf or at a different vendor aside from the guild. This time, Rose was able to sort through the lot much more quickly. All right, and the total is 443,500 Valis. Would you like for me to sort that into bullion, or? She left the question hanging, since before he had consigned his haul to the guild's keeping, since it also functioned as the bank and mint of Orario. Same as before, though I can now ask that you transfer this amount to the Hestia Familia keeping, instead of my personal one, thank you, Miss Fannet. Although, I would like to withdraw 43,500 from that amount, if that is all right. Perfectly fine, she smiled. It actually makes things easier for me, so thank you, Mr. Adventurer. Belle had relayed to Ina the report of their trip, being ultimately the need for them to go on an adventure. Ina had a policy explicitly against this, of course, but had relented given that Belle had such powerful supervision. This had been the first time he intentionally went out seeking an adventure to level up, after all. He recounted fully what had happened, including the battle with the floor boss. Naturally, Ina found it endearing to listen to his stories, likely because he simply had a knack for storytelling. It always sounded like something out of a book with him, but he also came across in a way that made it possible to believe what he said totally. Despite how crazy it was at the best of times. I see, I can remember when the Sword Princess completed the same feat not long ago. I don't want to speak too soon, but I think it's safe to say that you will soon be a fresh level 5, Belle. It is pretty amazing that you were able to complete the same feat she did at a lower level. I think it's going to stir things up just as much as your first level up, so be ready for that. For now, I will save my congratulations until the official announcement, though Ina finally dismissed him, gathering her notes as she left with him from the booth. They walked back to the lobby where Aiden had just finished his work, and the two joined, giving their goodbyes to the guild workers before heading out. As they did, Ina happened to glance to the side and catch a glimpse of her superior giving the two a particular look, but Rose noticed and turned her gaze to her. Realizing she'd been caught, her face took on an uncharacteristic flush as her ears pointed straight up and her tail bristled slightly. Not a word, please, Tool. Oh no, of course not. After all, surely you wouldn't, after all of the teasing everyone has been putting me through with Belle since he started? While Ina was sorting through some feelings regarding her own adventurer, one thing she could admit, even if only to some of her closest friends, was that the men of the Hestia Familia all had amazing butts. Frankly, she couldn't blame her co-worker a bit. The other side of the coin to being one of the faces of the guild was getting endlessly hit on by no small number of Orario's adventurers. At least they could privately appreciate some of the eye candy from time to time in exchange for that, right? Only a quick stop at the benevolent mistress to confirm the time of their celebration held the two up on their way home. Of course, Belle and Aiden had been met at the gate by most of the Familia. Master Belle. Belle, Aiden, welcome home. Hey, you two, welcome back, Captain, you're back. Yeah, it's time to celebrate. Needless to say, they had some obligatory, pre-celebratory party time at home, where the story was recounted as they shared in the success of Belle's recent accomplishment. After telling the tale, Hestia finally let go of hugging the boy's arm as she beamed at him. Well, why wait? Want me to go ahead and check your status, Belle? Yes, please. Goddess, I don't want to wait anymore. In an excitement that matched when he received the news of his first level up, Belle dashed off before Hestia as she got upset in good humor, grumbling about his haste as she set off after him. Sure enough, when she checked his status, the news was overwhelmingly great. Belle Crannel Rabbit Foot, level 4, 5, strength, SSSS 1202, X 1677, I0, endurance, SS 1066, X 1501, I0, dexterity, SSS 1181, X 1589, I0, agility, X 1524, X 1805, I0. Magic, SS 1003, SSSS 1299, I0, magic spell slots, 1, Firebolt, short chant magic that hits the target with a blast of electric flame. Chant, Firebolt, new magic, Sealam Veil, enchantment magic which coats the user in a cloak of lightning. This boosts the agility, strength, and dexterity of the user, while imbuing additional damage to their attacks, as well as their defense, meaning that those who land attacks will be hurt by the lightning. A secondary chant can be used to launch the electricity in all directions as an attack. Primary chant, Rage, Wrath of Heaven. Secondary chant, Distal. There is an additional quality to the user's Selim Veil that is currently unavailable. Skills, Liara's Freeze Familia. Fast growth for the user. Those the user views as close friends, family, and themselves as long as feelings last. The strength of the effects corresponds with the level of the user's feelings. As a side effect, it makes the user immune to charms. Argonaut allows a charge for a counterattack. It requires 5 minutes, formerly 4, for a full charge and can either sound like a small chime or a grand bell depending on the power stored. It can be used for any type of attack, but the effects will dissipate when the user attacks or they lose focus. Ox Slayer heavily increases all abilities when fighting raging bull-type monsters, potentially making the user stronger than their actual level when fighting them. Development abilities, Luck F, E, Abnormal Resistance G, Escape I, H. Available abilities to choose from: Mage I, Strong Body I, Crush I. Having read through his Excelia, Hestia while keeping certain developments to herself transcribed what she thought was necessary before giving him the paper. Giddy at once surprised it, revealed and looking forward to showing him congratulations, Belle, you're level 5. Chapter End Notes. I hope you are all enjoying and reading carefully. AA, Shotai, Chapter Summary. Celebrate good times. That's Hestia Familia's name of the game, upon their captain's return from his successful adventure. A night at the hostess allows Belle to finally get something off his chest to an important person to him, the elf. He survived the harrowing experience of his first descent to the deep levels, with the same experience he conquered in his latest battle. The only question now is what will the maiden's answer to his question be? Chapter Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Familia Oratoria Adamici Fanfiction, Chapter 18, Shotai. Belle was extremely happy to see that his level up was not only official, but brought with it a new magic, his new magic Selim Veil. It was partially because of this, but also on the counsel of both Aiden and Althea, that he chose the mage ability. They had well explained the benefits of it to any user of magic, and with his new one, it would be a massive benefit to him. Not that the other two weren't good choices, too. Still, he had been shocked to learn that frontline fighters could put the mage ability to good use, in either case, unlike the last time he received magic. He was patient. This was not only because they had literally just returned home from the dungeon, but because it would not be long before they were to be celebrating at the benevolent mistress. Looking at it, though, the magic was another short chant, even if it was longer than Firebolt. Well, he would try it out later. For now, his whole familia was getting ready for a party. As Hestia Familia made their way to the popular pub, they attracted attention as had become usual, but their obvious good mood was so infectious that it practically spread out from them, like ripples. Many eyes were on their captain, who was especially jubilant, of course, even if it was official. It still wasn't announced that he had leveled to 5. Lily's level up had been announced, but, being a level 2, she had garnered relatively little attention in comparison, and probably would not until the regular Donatus. Still, when their full group arrived at Mia's, everyone was in good spirits. For the waitresses, they had been surprised, not by the arrival, which they were of course expecting, but the composition of the party. Belle had only told them the number that would be attending, but it soon became obvious that it was solely Hestia Familia, and that Hestia Familia had almost completely become Naya. It's totally a harem. White hair is totally naughty after all, Anya whispered to her fellow Chloe, who was pouting slightly at the group. There's no way I'll cop a feel Toniate. As she mumbled her lament, she felt a chill run down her spine and turned to see a beauty with long white hair. It seemed as though she was glaring through her soul. But her eyes weren't even open. Gulping, Chloe resolved to avoid aggravating the woman at all costs. She was not the only one to notice either. Mia and Ryu as well as all of the workers at the Hostess of Fertility, as it was nicknamed, were instantly aware of the presence of first-class strength among the Hestia familia, but they in particular were sensitive to the feeling. Mia could tell that some of that feeling was coming from Belle, which did shock her a bit, but even that was overpowered by the man with them, and then, from the white-haired woman. Mamma mia, Shiryu managed to keep her voice from wavering, but was unable to finish her statement. She had seen the man with Belle a couple of times now, and was aware that he was the strong new member of the familia that the rumors were stirred up about. However, she actually recognized the woman. No, Ryu, let's just take it easy for now. Things are obviously calm, and ye can talk to the kiddo about things when ye have the chance with the simple solution, the knight went on. Hestia Familia had paid well for a party, and that's exactly what they got. Platters of fine food followed by jugs and gourds of potent alcohol, sweet brews, tangy juices, and fragrant teas were brought out to them in course. The revelry was long-lasting, most of the familia going long into the night, even as other guests came and went around them. Mia had come out with some especially strong liquor at the request of the few men of the familia who wished for a contest. Among adventurers, this required excessively stout drinks taken in quantities that unblessed people would drink weak ale in. Not that she could know, but the contest would not be fair in any shape, as Belle had an edge with his abnormal resistance, but Aiden much more so with his immunity. Still, she brought out her own special secret among the brewers of Orario, the 198 proof, Etherclear nectar, a clear bluish potent alcohol she made herself, using fruits harvested from the dungeon and distilled until it was potent enough to be satisfactory. While it could be mixed in small amounts for cocktails, for adventurers of high status wishing for alcohol to actually affect them, it was almost a necessity. As she placed the jug down, the oldest man called out in slight surprise, "Mia, is that you?" Apparently, someone hadn't been paying much attention as the night had worn on. She'd been out to their tables a number of times already. "It is you. Well, I'll be. I never expected you to be running an establishment like this." She focused on the man and found herself a bit consternated that she didn't realize who he was. Well, obviously he was the level 7 the rumor mill wouldn't shut up about, but beyond the obvious, well, I gotta say it suits you fine anyway, it's a great place. Thank you very much, but not to be rude, do I know you? The man took a long draught of his drink before looking her in the eyes. Oh yeah, God's got me that new name. Before that announcement I was called Horace O. What? Her eyes widened in uncharacteristic shock. The slave driver. I can't believe I didn't recognize you. Guess that explains a few things, but how did you end up here, if you don't mind me asking? Well, I never left Orario. After the last expedition Zeus and Hera's kids went on, I decided to stay here. Eventually, I ran into Althea, and we decided to petition goddess Hestia to join her familia. She deadpanned at his brief explanation, but didn't press him for more. They were in public, and his familia was paying her well for the night. That didn't mean she was able to suppress the chill that ran down her back as one of her first trainers looked her in the eye when he accepted his drink. I meant it, it's a fine place, Mia, thanks old timer. She eased a smile as he did, watching him, Belle, and Welf start in on their drinking. Shaking her head, she went back to work. The contest went predictably, but was still good fun as Welf tottered in his seat. Belle laughed with a flushed face, and Aiden sighed as he began to feel the beginnings of tipsy tingling in his fingertips. Remembering something he wanted to do before the night was out, Belle took the moment to excuse himself to the restroom to use and wash up before coming back and finding his quarry. Miss Ryu, do you have a moment? The elf in question did not flinch, but known only to her it was a close thing. Her attention had been mostly focused on the white-haired woman for most of the evening, but she did not approach her and nobody made a scene. Needless to say, even a slightly sloshed Belle was able to sneak up on her. Belle, of course. Everyone seems set for the time being. I can check on them after. That's right, you said there was something you wanted to ask me. MNHMN, yup, do you want to go? He gestured uncertainly, but Ryu managed to pick up on his meaning easily. Yes, we can step out to the courtyard at the back. She led the way. Busy as the hostess was, the courtyard was completely deserted. The night sky was clear, and the brightest stars managed to be seen through Orario's lights alongside the full moon. Ryu's heart sped up as she imagined the upcoming conversation and other things. Belle chuckled as they came to a stop, sitting down on a bench, before ushering Ryu to take a place beside him. I'm really happy, Miss Ryu. In a short time, my familia has grown so much, and I even went and became a level 5. Honestly, I wasn't sure I would be able to go back down into the deep levels after what happened. You went there for your adventure? She was a bit anxious, but talking with Belle no matter the subject was soothing to her. Yeah, Aiden took me to Solo Udius. She was taken aback for a moment before she pinched his ear, unknowingly pouting while she scolded him. That was incredibly reckless, Belle. You're quite lucky to have pulled through such a fight as a second-class adventurer. Sorry. Haha, but I really did it. I still have a ways to go, but I'm getting much stronger than I ever thought, even if I'm not where I want to be yet. He took a breath, looking up at the night sky. Everyone is supporting me, and we're all getting stronger together. Even though our goals aren't all the same, it makes me so happy that I came here and found my familia. Her heart warmed to hear his words, even if she felt the phantom ache of lacking the very thing he was describing, as she remembered those same feelings after she joined and found a home in Astria. Familia. It all made me feel the best I have since my grandfather died, and I left to come to Orario. She kept her silence. Belle hardly ever talked about his past, and she secretly wanted to learn more about him, and I thought about how I wanted to share that feeling. The first person that my mind went to when I thought that was you, Ryu. Me? She placed her hand on her chest. She didn't think the conversation was going to turn to her, but if he was going to ask her something. Wait, was he really? That's right, he smiled. I might have had the same thought before what happened in the deep levels, but especially now I know I'm sure. I want to ask you, Ryu, and feel free to think. Before you give your answer. She was starting to shake, imperceptibly. He was really about to ask her. Now. She wasn't ready. They weren't even in a forest. Of course he was sweet and got them some privacy. She knew he could work a miracle, but that didn't mean she was any more prepared. Ryu? Why, yes? Would you join my familia? Oh. That wasn't exactly what she was thinking it might be, but when the question registered in his mind, Ryu's face still burned with blush as her ears tilted down, also flooded with a red hue. Her hand came up to cover her face, but she kept her eyes open and facing him. Her reaction must have worried him, as he gently grabbed her shoulder. Sorry, I really didn't mean to spring it on you, but I thought this was a good chance to ask you. Like I said, take as long as you need. You don't have to answer right away. Thank you, Belle. I would like some time to think on it, but I can say that the offer itself. This means very much to me. They stayed together in silence while she calmed down a bit and he sobered, happy at how things had gone. They returned to the party before they were missed, save for a couple pairs of eyes. The night continued until bellies were filled and eyelids grew heavy, and the party moved slowly from the pub back home, where it would crash almost instantly into rest. At the benevolent mistress, there was still cleanup to be done. Ryu worked with Chloe, Lunoir, Anya, Mia, and Maasir had somehow gotten off somewhere again. It was while wiping down tables and putting away chairs that the elf shyly mentioned to Mia the offer Belle had presented to her. Well, that sounds great. But what are you asking me for about? You don't need my permission to do anything about it, Mia grunted. If it's advice you need, then do what you feel like doing, whatever you think is best, try that. Mama Mia's right, Ryu. I think you have the most right of all of us to be a little selfish if you want. Lunoir smiled at her, not saying you have to accept, or even that if you do you won't be workin' with us anymore, but you shouldn't leave a cute boy like Belle waiting on your answer whatever it is. Cheeks red. She retorted, I didn't plan to make him wait, I just wasn't sure of myself. If I accept, it will be a big change. That affects you all, too. So. I just wanted to think it over properly. Well, it's pretty clear you want to accept, Anya hummed, stroking her chin. Honestly, nay, I probably would, too, so you should accept. Anya is right, Chloe agreed. Did you see all those new members? They're all women. You need to join to make sure he keeps coming here and they don't monopolize that tight. Mia cuffed the woman over the head before she could finish her vulgar train of thought. Careful there, pussycat, or did you not notice the white-haired woman with them was already keeping hawk eyes out for any shenanigans? Rio. Of course I noticed, it's why I didn't try to cop a feel tonight. I could feel it. If I'd gone for his tush, she would've skinned me alive. Mia sighed at her airhead workers and addressed Ryu. I ain't gonna tell you what to do, but I think the girls are right, and Seer would probably agree. It's okay for things to change from time to time, ya foolish girl. The talk continued as they worked, but Ryu knew she had made up her mind even before she mentioned it to them at all. She knew what she wanted. After all, the issue she couldn't address was whether she deserved it. But that wasn't for her to say. Belle had offered it to her, and had thought carefully about it. If he knew about asking her for some time already. He was sure about this, and he is the captain of Hestia Familia, so she was well able to accept, and she was going to. This was how, as the first thing in the morning, Ryu ended up going straight to Hethfire Manor, full of her usual cool confidence after a final reassurance from her friend Seer that morning. She was taken in by the early risers of the Hestia Familia: Haruheim, Belle, Mikoto, Aiden, Althea, Iris, Oriana, and Gita. Her eyes caught Althea in the large room. Haruheim took her, too, as well, but the woman didn't seem to even acknowledge her presence, so she tried to relax. Haruheim and Mikoto were concerned at first when she came, thinking that there was some issue that required their help, but were surprised when she simply said, I would like to accept your offer, if you will still have me. Belle, with all possible elven grace and mannerisms, she bowed her head and displayed the utmost decorum, but her words caused some flustered confusion in some of her audience. She also became acutely aware that she now had Althea's direct attention, frightening as it was, but she showed no outward signs of distress. At least, until Belle clasped her hands in his, beaming widely. Really? I'm so happy to hear that, Ryu. Goddess isn't awake yet, but why don't you stay with us until she is and I can tell her? Our newer members may have met you last night, but once we're all awake, we can have a proper introduction just like that. Every bit of tension seemed to evaporate as the others eased into Belle's unintentional reassurance, knowing that an answer to the situation would not be long in coming. When they had the explanation, they were both excited and happy to know of Ryu's acceptance. Most of the familia were already acquainted with her, and knew she was strong and reliable, as well as friendly enough. The introductions proved pleasant if a bit formal on Ryu's part, and by the time Hestia was ready to accept their newest member, everyone was happy with the decision. Ryu Lion joined the Hestia Familia. There was simply one issue with her joining, though. I'm afraid I'll have to act discreetly for some time. After all, I am still blacklisted by the guild, Ryu said solemnly, her ears drooping just slightly as she relayed the reality of the situation. Given what happened before in the Water City, you all must know that I still have an 80 million Valis bounty from the guild. Her words silenced the cheer, as the girls had not known that information, and the other Familia members had allowed the fact to evade their memory. That is an issue, but you can still work with us. Aiden nodded. We cannot announce you as a member, but for the time being, I should think that going into the dungeon with us will be enough? Of course, after all, fame and recognition are not goals of mine. In the first place, simply being a member of the Familia is enough. Still, I do not want to bring you all any trouble or misfortune, Ryu. I invited you knowing that some difficulties might come our way. Can't you let me cover for them as your captain? Well said, Belle. Herrera smiled. Just lay low, and we can look for a proper solution with time. I can look into it. There was an old loophole for blacklisted adventurers, but it was rarely used. What was that? She asked. If they or someone on their behalf were to pay the guild the value of the bounty instead of turning the person in, they could get the guild to clear the bounty as though the blacklisting had been rescinded. Essentially, it's a formalized bribe. If it's still in place, we would need to pay the guild 80 million in order to get Ryu's bounty clear. I couldn't ask that. Such an amount is on par for what one could get a first-class piece of equipment for. Ryu argued, perhaps I can stay concealed long enough to earn that myself, but, too late. Welf grinned, looking at the change on Belle's face. Right, don't worry Ryu, we should be able to manage that, before too long. If that loophole doesn't exist anymore, we'll just have to figure out something else. Chapter end notes. Hestia Familia is on quite the roll. They went from 3 proper members with 2 borrowed members from their allies in Takamikazuchi Familia and Hephaestus Familia, to a moderately sized and quite powerful Familia. Even though their newest member is blacklisted, still, things are really looking up for the Familia, which is only a little over 8 months old. Doshi, chapter summary. Hestia Familia are rapidly approaching the completion of their first quest since their failed expedition, and are nearly ready to finish their mapping work to the first safe zone of the dungeon. This achievement is simultaneous with Aiden's slave-driving tendencies rearing their head. Of course, chapter notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Familia Oratoria Adamichi Fanfiction, chapter 19. Doshi, Ryu Lion Gale Wind, level 4. 5, Strength, E488, B797, I0, Endurance, F352, C689, I0, Dexterity, A888, S999, I0, Agility, A889, S999, I0, Magic, B717, S973, I0. Magic spell slots. 1. Luminous Wind, a wind and light element wide area offensive, magic that summons green stardust to attack the enemy. This stardust gathers in several orbs which can be released all at once, to cover a wide area, or deployed individually at convenient moments. A single orb can be made to explode with the secondary chant, Luvia, chant, in the sky of a now distant forest, infinite stars scattered in the endless night sky. Respond to my foolish voice, give me now divine protection of starfire, give the mercy of light to the one that abandoned you. Come, wandering wind, the wandering traveler, cross the sky and run through the wilderness, run faster than anything else, imbue the light of stardust and destroy the enemy. Luminous Wind, 2. Noah Heal, a recovery magic that can heal wounds and recover stamina, though the effect is gradual, unlike with potions, taking time to work. The efficacy of this magic is affected by the surroundings. The efficacy is higher in forested environments. Chant, the song of a now distant forest, the nostalgic song of life, please bring the mercy of healing to those that seek you. Noah Heal, skills, Fairy Serenade, increases the efficacy of magic. This effect is more potent at night. Mind Load, increases Ryu's strength stat. When attacking using mind, it has an active trigger. Arrow Mana, increases Ryu's attack power the faster she is moving. A blue flash borders her weapon when this skill is in use. Development abilities, Hunter G, F, Abnormal Resistance G, F, Magic Resistance I, G, available abilities to choose from, Mage I, Spirit Healing I, Healing Power I. Ryu had been a level 4 for some time, and had gone through many harrowing events since the last time Astria looked at her status. While it was pleasing to hear, it was not overly surprising that she, like Belle, had earned the right to advance to level 5, gaining the mage ability when she did so. This was generally good news for the Familia, but of course, it also presented a particular problem. NNNNNGGGGHHH. There's no way around it. This will make our Familia a rank, which means way more taxes. Lily groaned, very much not looking forward to the increased budget management this change would bring, as well as the regular paperwork from their Familia growing so quickly. With Heriris, Belle, Althea, and Ryu all being first-class level adventurers, they were officially evaluated on par with the likes of Ganesha, Freya, and Loki. Familia. Really, she wanted to count them lucky that having the 2 veteran adventurers didn't make them an S-rank Familia, but not only would that require a public release that the guild wouldn't like, but Yes. If I recall. That means our tax obligation will be 12 million valis annually now, Aiden muttered, thinking about how this might impact their activities. Actually, Master Herreris, the tax for a rank familia is 18 million per year, Lily corrected him, as his knowledge was quite dated. After all, honestly, I know it was important to clear her name, but it might have been smarter to leave Ms. Ryu's bounty alone for a little while for purely economic reasons. Aiden had once again put his seemingly stupendous wealth to use for the familia and had advanced the payment for Ryu's bounty. After speaking with Rose early that morning, he discovered that the loophole was very much still applicable and had the funds transferred then and there. Needless to say, Ryu and Belle both forced him to accept their promise to pay him back as soon as they could. Lily. Belle reprimanded her. Sorry, Master Belle, Lily was just thinking out loud. She is happy that Ms. Ryu isn't burdened by that faulty bounty, too, but I see where you are coming from, young Lily. If the familia is now a rank, then we need to budget 1.5 million per. Let it not be said that I don't look after my juniors, he smiled. I also don't want the two of you on bad terms should my new captain get more involved with your own charge, so you've even noticed that? Nothing escapes your sight, it seems. For my part, I welcome them growing closer. Ace has brightened tremendously since he came into her life. Even more so than anyone else in our familia, he has been able to break the shell her single-minded goal has built around her heart. Yeah, he seems to have that effect on people. She looked at his eyes as his face softened, a small smile growing as his gaze tracked up to the crystalline ceiling of the floor. I would welcome it, at least, and I hope to get his new mama bear to agree, though I will say both Alfea and you may need to bear in mind that the boy has a great many young ladies who seem to hold a good deal of affection for him. Riveria sighed at that. I am mostly aware, at least I suspect few of our own girls have some level of that sort of interest in him. I can understand why, at least, but I don't want any of them to end up hurt. At this rate, Belle is potentially shaping up to be another successor to Zeus in the same vein as Zald and some of that pervert's other kiddos. What do you mean by that? What, don't you remember that Zald was involved with a large harem of women in his day? Even I remember that, and I didn't care about my own familia all that much back then. He was hardly the only one like that, too. Actually, pretty much all of Zeus' boys were of that type. From what I recall, even the boy's father was a skirt chaser until he set his eyes on materia. Please do not speak of Belle making a harem of our own familia's ladies, Herreris, it's uncouth. To be fair, it would be far more than just some of the girls of your familia. If it did happen that way, it doesn't seem like he has that disposition, but Zeus did raise him from infancy. What of yourself then, Riveria interjected, seeking to change the subject even a little. Were you not also a part of Zeus' familia? Perhaps you would claim to be the only one who wasn't a womanizer? Well. He looked away from her, speaking lowly. I'll tell you a little secret, I suppose. A very long time ago, before I was even given my fauna, I was married. I had a family with a lovely wife and 2 young children, Ethelwyn, Elric, and Elfmer. They were taken from me, killed far before their time. And it eventually led me to Orario. I haven't had a mind to pursue that sort of love again since. I'm not sure I will ever be able to take another wife after her. I am very sorry about that. Horace Riveria blushed in shame, not noticing her slip. Just before I was calling you uncouth and then went and said something like that. Peace, young Riveria, he smiled again, if wanly speaking. Frankly, it was a fair question I have to ask, though his tone turned to teasing. What would you do if I was a womanizer? He chuckled as her only answer was to stumble as her blush spread rapidly across her neck and ears. Clearing her throat, she shot a mock glare at him. Keep our maidens away from you, obviously. With what a menace of a flirt you clearly seem to be. His genuine laughter dispelled any awkwardness that remains as her own laughter joined in. Chapter end notes. We have action and some more slight fluff and not so fluff. One more chapter will wrap up the arc, but there is still a lot of story to go. Zenshin, Chapter Summary. The conclusion to the first arc of the plot brings us close to the 1-year anniversary of Belle's beginning as an adventurer, an appropriate timeframe, I think. Please continue reading for next time, when we kick off the beginning of the next story arc. R.H. Undercroft A.A. Familia Oratoria Adamici Fanfiction, Chapter 21, Zenshin. Upon their return, Loki Familia settled into home after a long spell in the dungeon. They had been away from home for well over a month, and planned a long rest collectively. However, their return meant a great deal of work for a certain someone. As Hestia had recently discovered, there was some considerable work in even just updating a larger familia, and Loki was very familiar with this. Her own familia was much larger, and they had almost all gone on this recent trip, which meant a hassle of work for her, since most of them were chomping at the bit to get their updates as soon as possible. She got to work as quickly as possible, if only to shut the more chattery ones up some. She went through the lower level ones first. On the whole, the expedition was pretty successful in terms of their growth. Getting to her higher level kids showed the same. Tiona, Tioni, and Bet were settling in as level SIXS and growing their stats well into that level, and Lafia was doing as good for her level 4 status, beginning to get close to Raoul and Aki in her own ability. The three executives had waited until the end, expecting, at long last, to have moved up to the next level after a long, grueling battle with Baylor, the goat-like monster Rex of the 49th floor. True to expectation, her eyes bulged when she saw that, first Finn, then Gareth, and finally Riveria had all done it. Can't believe it, but you all really did it. In one swoop, you went and cleared it. You're all level 7 now, good job guys. Thank you goddess, it always pleases me when things go to plan, Finn said. Now I feel more comfortable with our position. Though I wonder how the rest will react. Well, we do have a bit of a message to deliver for you anyway, Loki Riveria cut in. On our journey, we encountered Hestia Familia with their captain and Heriris. They paid closer attention as their goddess gained more of a serious expression while she listened. He implied that things weren't completely honest about what has been told of him, and made an offer to train our familia in return for an agreement between you and goddess Hestia. Finn felt his thumb twitch as Loki paled slightly. That little punk. Didn't Arenas put a gag order or something on him? We were supposed to have discretion about tellin' the other mortals if the truth gets out. Mama, what did he say that implied that? Surely it ain't too weird for him to offer that. He used to do it all the time when he was with Zeus. He said that he and Otter had already come to an agreement. He will be training the warlord himself, which would normally be strange if the announcement was completely true. Ugh. Loki sighed and slumped down. Course the meathead would figure it out. I bet Freya didn't even have to say a word. Alright, I'll tell you three everything, but keep it mum, yeah? I have no idea what's going through Arena's mind in regard to this whole situation, but it makes me queasy. So Loki continued and gave them the full rundown on the whole emergency Donatus, watching as the three took it in with their own degrees of shock. Level 10 and 8. And he went to the 100th floor? Finn whispered, feeling almost ill with how violently his thumb throbbed. That is more than I expected to handle. I was keeping quiet for a reason, sorry guys. Nah, it's nothing to be sorry over, Goddess Gareth grumbled. It does irk me a bit, though. A human at level 10 before any of us, who'd have thought it? It makes sense now, why the king would seek him out to grow stronger. He must have sensed the gap between them was still great. Riveria muttered, ashamed that they hadn't realized he was still so much farther above them, too. We're lucky that Freya hasn't gone for him, honestly, Loki said, gravely. He seems confident she won't, so there may be some history there, but I don't know if that's the case. Did he mention anything more specific about this training? Does he want to be paid or something this time? Well, he said that in Otter's case, he merely earned a valuable favor. I assume we won't know the cost ourselves unless we pursue it. Riveria is right, and now I feel like we don't have a choice but to do so. even if only to foster friendly relations with Hestia, Familia. For now, I think we should approach with an offer and go. From there, maybe bring Ace, Lafia, and the twins with us. Bet, should sit this one out, I think Finn considered. Well, they just finished a good bit of work and effort on their part, too. Their familia will be resting as ours will for a while, so, now's the time to ask, right? Strike while the iron's hot. Gareth smacked a fist into his other hand. Our kiddos will be rarin' ta go, for some training in a few days. We should pay em a visit before then. Finn, for now, I just want you to establish terms of an agreement, understand? Loki ordered, until we know exactly what he wants, I can't let this go forward with confidence. She bit her fingernail. Honestly, what a mess. Upon their own return, Hestia Familia was having their own celebration once again. Nearly everyone had leveled up from the battle, save for Lily and Haruheim, who had not earned the right to advance. Still, they were in good spirits, considering that the Excelia from the battle overcharged their stats, so that they were now more than eligible to earn their own level ups. Both were happy as they were being consoled and pampered by Belle and some of the other girls, which took a great deal of the sting out of it. Welf was of course given the Goliath drop to use at his discretion. Master Aiden had said that they may get to level up when they finish with the map work later, which was something to buoy their hearts. Welf, Mikoto, and Oriana were able to become level 3, a particularly spectacular achievement for the 3, as they had only been working at it for a little over 8, 10, and 11 months, respectively, all record-breaking achievements before Belle's ludicrous feat. In any case, the celebration went long and late, as everyone came away from the ordeal with a high sense of accomplishment. Despite this, the next day started early for the usual members, which meant there were a handful of people awake to greet the guests that arrived. My goodness, we have quite the visitation today. Aiden grinned, seeing most of the high-level members of Loki Familia coming into the courtyard, having been greeted by Althea instead of Haruheim. They were a bit on edge, but he noticed that the 3 executives seemed more relaxed. They were settled into the large great room as Belle came to meet with them. Hestia was still asleep, but the captain was happy to see his friends and welcomed them with Ryu, Althea, Aiden, Lily, Welf, and Haruheim, as the other members were still resting or attending to other things. Welcome Mr. Finn, everyone. Belle smiled brightly, but this is a little strange. Normally when you guys visit it's more informal? Yes, but given circumstances, we had a reason for all coming today. Actually, it would be more accurate to say that we have multiple reasons. Finn began, and when Belle motioned him, he continued. First, I wanted to ask and make sure that there were no hard feelings between us over the issue a little bit back with the monsters on the surface. Finn knew he had to get any discomfort out of the way early, and could feel the unease form his own familia at his question, mostly from Tiona and Ace. They weren't totally in the know on the Xenos situation. And given how Belle led the Hestia Familia, they were either in a similar position, or they had even more information than he did. Well. Speaking for myself, there are no hard feelings. Everyone made it through that more or less alright, so I don't see a reason to have any grudge over it now. Besides, you guys were doing what was expected of you. Belle answered honestly, but didn't catch the severe look Althea shot at the 3 Loki executives, managing to slightly cow Gareth and the vice captain. Finn, though, soldiered on. I'm relieved to hear that. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, but given how things ended, I'm happy to put it behind us, too. Having said that, we also came to give you a heads up, since you did the same for us when you leveled up. Belle caught on quickly, and his eyes shined in expectation. How did your expedition go? Very well, overall, but Gareth, Riveria, and I have all reached level 7. We wanted to let you know before there was a public announcement by the guild. Smiling, the Loki captain saw the genuine joy and exuberance pour off of Belle's expression. Congratulations you guys. Haha, thanks lad, we been going after this for years now. Feels good to hit the target at last. Indeed, thank you Mr. Crannell, thank you very much. Finn let his smile sink into a half grin. Of course, with this reciprocity, I wanted to bring up a possibility, with you, the chance of forming an alliance between our familia. This time, Finn was surprised though didn't show it as Belle suddenly grew serious. His face wasn't solemn, but he could tell that the boy was focusing heavily on everything that was happening, alright, as a possibility. What brought this up? Well, our familia have had informal, but good relations so far in the recent past. There are good relationships between a number of our members, too, so I thought that making something more official of it would be a boon to us. I do agree with that, but even if we can put the incident with the monsters on the surface behind us, that doesn't mean the public can as easily. There is still some unease over our familia from what I understand. Wouldn't that affect you guys? We have thought about that, but I believe the benefits of pursing this arrangement outweigh those drawbacks. What benefits do you see in making an official alliance with us, specifically? Belle looked Finn in the eye, Lily gripping his forearm from her place beside him, and Aiden smiling knowingly at the blonde Paolum. For one, pooling resources and knowledge for future quests and expeditions, which is the main point of any alliance. With the growth of your familia recently, it wouldn't be a stretch for us to ally with you in pushing deeper into the dungeon, which would naturally benefit both of us. Belle nodded as Finn went on. Further, for you this could help alleviate that public image issue you mentioned, and promote more people to your familia as a result. For us, this could possibly present an opportunity to train with our old instructor. Finally, Finn played his hand, and saw the understanding dawn on Belle's face. I wonder if Mr. Finn would have ever considered something like this if Mr. Aiden didn't join us. You mean you want to train with Mr. Aiden? I wouldn't be opposed, but only if he agreed. That is, if we were to become allies, then that simply leaves what the terms of this alliance should be. Beyond what we mentioned, this should really be written down in an official agreement. Master Belle, Master Finn. Lily interjected. If this is to be an official alliance, it should be supported by proper documentation. Of course, and the final word must be witnessed by our goddesses, too. Before that, though, I simply wanted a preliminary understanding of what the agreement would entail. That way we could both be informed and prepared to make it final. Then would it be fair to say that in this alliance, you wish to pursue more integrated teamwork in operations within the dungeon, as well as training available from Mr. Aiden? Belle asked. Is that right? Anything else? I think that's a fair summary. What would you say that you want out of this? Beyond what you've already mentioned as side benefits to an alliance, there is only one thing I can state for myself. And another, I will leave to Mr. Aiden. Belle said seriously, getting the full attention of the room. Should something happen with the Xenos again, we will not help to fight against them, he stated seriously. And finally, shock filled not only the Loki Familia visitors, but even some of his own allies. He practically stated that even if they were allies, he would not aid them against monsters, of all things. True, a particular kind of monster that they had become friends with, but that could not be known by the other party at the time. Finn, though, decided to take the statement at face value. Very well, I can accept that. Even among allies, we each have our own secrets, after all. What of Heriris? What is it, you would ask? The man who had been looking at his own captain turned his eyes to Finn, smiling like a cat. Should we become official allies, I will gladly train any member of your familia as though they were my own, including you, Riveria, and Gareth. I ask only one thing in return, that everyone I train, which I will do to the best of my ability, will aid us in completing the last of the 3 grand quests in an instant. The Loki Familia understood, particularly their executives, what was happening. What Aiden had done with Otter, and likely with many more later down the line. They'd walked right into the most dangerous situation any adventurer could ever find themselves in, and what was worse, he knew even without looking that Ace was already completely on board, her own eyes sparkling at the prospect. He couldn't stop himself from sighing, pinching the bridge of his nose as he clenched his eyes shut for a moment. You want us to help kill that dragon? The same one that foiled Zeus and Hera, right? Have you got a plan to face that monster? I'll tell you, like I told Otter, I only have the most bare planning done for now. and I don't wish to elaborate until I at least have formed enough allies here in Orario to do so at one time. I will say that we have some advantages, namely accounts of the battle, to draw on, and potentially greater strength than Zeus and Hera had greater? How'd you figure that? Gareth grunted. Already, between your first class members, Freya Familia, and the first class members of our own Familia, I would guess that we come close to matching most of the combat strength of Zeus and Hera. Once our training has borne fruit, we alone will match or even surpass it, but we will seek out more allies, yet. My goal is to bring every adventurer in Orario that is first class in ability into the fold. Once we have as many allies as we can get, I will seek out more strength from abroad, in terms of manpower, equipment, and even quests which may pitch the battle further in our favor. This is a lot to take in. Riveria finally spoke up, having been paying more attention to A's reaction. Frankly, it is a lot to ask. Of course I'm aware of that. Aiden's side, this isn't a condition for an alliance. But I don't expect to personally train anyone unless they can help me in this endeavor. For one, if we cannot succeed in it, then anything else we do will be rendered moot soon. Once the dragon renews its rampage, he noticed everyone tense at his words. You didn't think it would stay quiet forever, did you? Zeus and Hera weren't able to kill or cripple it, after all, only exhausted enough to hibernate, likely in the northernmost part of the world. Once it awakens to full strength, our prospects will be even more grim. Ideally, we can gather a great amount of strength and strike it down while it is still relatively weakened from their efforts. After coming this far, Finn knew he couldn't simply refuse, so he acquiesced. All right, I need to relay all of this to our goddess, but I don't think she will block an alliance. Now, out of curiosity, how far do you think we can get by the time we will be called on? Otter was curious of the same. Aiden took a moment to look over all of the Loki Familia. You three I can possibly get to level 8, and the rest level 7, except those two. He pointed at A's and Lafia. I can get A's to level 8 as well, possibly, and Lafia to 6, depending on how things go. How do you plan to get us to advance so quickly? Tioni asked, a bit unnerved that he seemed to know enough about them to accurately gauge their power and how far he could take them. Well, I was thinking we could all go on a little trip to the 100th floor. What do you think? He laughed with a shit-eating grin at their pale-face response, though he felt a bit guilty about it since his own Familia was just as shocked. Sorry, but I do seriously intend on taking us into the dungeon's depths. Don't be so worried, I have already been myself, so the danger is slightly less than what I faced the first time, although it is still much greater than anything you've encountered up to now. He looked over their reactions, his own Familia having tempered theirs and put their faith in his words. Loki's kids were more uncertain, and the elf Lafia was particularly unsteady looking. Enough of that, for now, though. You understand the terms of an alliance, and of myself training you. Do with it whatever you wish. I certainly won't blame you if you wish to avoid confronting the black dragon. Thank you. Well, that was all I really needed to come discuss with you all, so I think we will take our leave now. Mr. Finn, Belle stopped them, not wanting the meeting to end in such a formal manner. Do you want to join us for breakfast? I'll have to pass myself. But the others may wish to. Thank you, all the same, Belle. In a polite departure, Finn left with Tioni and Gareth to report back to Loki, while the rest stayed to enjoy breakfast with their new allies, Hestia Familia. Oitsuku, chapter summary. Beginning the second arc slowly, Aiden takes a breather to orient himself while the family adjusts after their adventure, where many earned the right to level up, though none have yet to go through with it. As things calm down, the groundwork is laid for the near future, and the mapping work is moved to its final stage. Chapter notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Familia Oratoria Adamichi Fanfiction, Chapter 22, Oitsuku. Loki sat in the office, hands held together as she contemplated what Finn had told her, Tioni standing to the side of the two. After a moment, she sighed, dropping her head in a sagging shrug. I suppose we can't really complain about this. We might not be caused Zeus and the bitch to fail their mission, but we did get him out of Orario so we could put ourselves at the top and get the people to chill out. Makes it our problem if the black dragon becomes an issue, right, Finn? From one perspective that might be true. Finn scrunched his brow. It could be said that it is our responsibility as the strongest, regardless of our past, to act against such a threat. The problem is that we can know that for the moment the challenge is far beyond us. Confronting it would be the wrong decision for now. You said that wasn't his plan, though? He wants to get everyone to become stronger and collect help from the whole world. It sounds like he has an idea of a plan based on some lessons from the failure before. That's right, but he hasn't explained the extent of it. He won't until he has all of the strength he can get here in Orario, which may take quite a bit of time yet. In any case, do you want to take advantage of the offer? The future will be unavoidable if the dragon is involved. Anyway, if ya think this is the best way to get stronger, my advice is to take it. Loki smiled, her captain as usual having arrived at the answer he needed to find for himself. After the return of the familia of Loki and Hestia, both took time away from the dungeon to rest from their endeavors, each having pushed hard to grow. Belle took the time to work with Welf in the forge, walk about the city, visit the orphanage with Seer, look at the books with Lily, and train with Ryu and the lower level members of the familia. He had quickly become familiar and close with the hastily expanded familia, and continued to try to understand his allies. Maybe the most mysterious of them was Althea, who rarely spoke beyond training, and seemed to be happy to simply observe them. Perhaps she was specifically looking after him, but her gaze was different from the one he had felt 4 months since first coming to Orario. Aiden was simpler to understand than her, but there was more to him to know. Belle, while playing cards with some of the girls, resolved to spend some time with each of the older adventurers to further improve their relationships. At the time, Aiden had excused himself for business. The man had gone about the town, first visiting the old district that had been destroyed in Orario's so-called Dark Age. It was unsurprising, but much of the area had become almost like a semi-rural slum, sparsely populated, and only by the poor at that. In fact, the only ones he encountered there were a small band of 4 children, none possibly older than 11 or so. Amazingly, they had the sheer temerity to threaten to mug him, even with his power restrained. It was quite brave. He decided to buy food for the lot of them, rushing as fast as he could without causing damage. He bought a heap of foodstuffs before running back. They were shocked at his action, mostly scared that he was revealed to be an adventurer, but thankfully they accepted the food. He observed that they lived in what appeared to be the destroyed ruins of an old church before moving on. Now that I think of it, isn't that where Materia spent a lot of her time? He made a note to himself about the place before he decided to leave the children some privacy for the time being. Continuing on, he took in the scope of the decay, wondering how Orario hadn't filled out enough in 15 years to overtake this area with new development. Surely everyone hasn't been confined to the existing areas of the city. Makes me wonder just how many powerful adventurers are even here in Orario after all. Leaving the area, he passed St. Fulin's Cathedral, noting it was still in good repair at least. He continued about Orario, simply observing as he went. After coming close to the wall, he decided to go to the top and run around it as he took in the city from the vantage with his sharp eyes. Once he had run nearly halfway around, he stopped, noting with wide eyes that the entertainment district had also been reduced to shambles. Nobody mentioned this. What the hell happened? I wonder if the Ishtar Familia and other whores are still doing their work. If not, there are surely a lot of unstable emotions building up in the male population, especially the adventurers. Most of us don't settle down with wives. After all, he had come to know many things in his long life, and but one of those was the precarious relationship between the sexes. While it was true that the fauna helped to stabilize it as the blessing was a form of minor divinity, it didn't rectify the fact that men had an outbound nature of vigorous energy, while women had an inward nature of contained control. What this boiled down to for adventurers was extreme stress from risking their life on a daily basis, leading to high sexual tension, and only problems could abound if the female population couldn't or wouldn't contain that energy, hence the near necessity of the pleasure district. Well, either that or Orario could suddenly become a family-focused city, with a high marriage rate and non-existent separation rate. Bloody unlikely that. I can't remember a city in 600 years that managed to move toward a family-based society. That's always been the domain of the countryside. His trip continued. Seeing a familiar sight shortly after moving on, he jumped down from the wall, landing lightly and moving toward the large area of monuments, crypts, and headstones, the adventurer graveyard. He was never one to leave flowers, but since he was here, he would pay his respects to the many people he had known that rested here. Methodically, he went through the aisles as his foggy memory was pricked by the names written on the slabs. He felt niggling pain when he saw some monuments that he remembered. But the names faded away. Passing more than 2 hours visiting, well over 400 tombs, he left the hallowed ground solemnly. Detouring through Deadless Street, he took note of the relatively squalid conditions, but despite their distrust of him, the people didn't seem particularly unhappy. At the end of his trip, he went to the guild building on the other side of the city and requested an audience with Arenas, which the guild had granted. "Heriris, to what end are you visiting today?" the old deity greeted when he arrived to the hall of prayers. The man bowed his head. "I actually wished to speak with Fels for a time, if you would permit it, Lord Arenas." I see no reason to deny that, so long as he doesn't mind." A cloaked figure stepped forward, materializing from the shadows. "Of course not, sir, I would enjoy a chat after so long." The pair went to an alcove to not disturb the god in his work. While they spoke, "Thanks you Fels, but I must tell you that I am also after some specifics today, though I would also enjoy more casual talk." "Is that so? Let us get the serious matters gone through first, then, what did you want to discuss?" "I've spent the day walking about the city Fels. I have heard from some of my familia since coming back, and as well I have gotten enough clues that some troubles have happened in the world in my absence, and Orario specifically. Would you fill me in?" There was a pause before the skeleton responded. "I'm surprised. This is the first time you have shown such interest, even long before Zeus and Hera left. Can I ask after the reason?" "My goals require it, but it goes further than that. For so long, I've had no cares in the world beyond hunting monsters in the dungeon and aimlessly getting stronger. I realized after running into Althea that I couldn't continue like that, and it made me think that Zeus took me in to help me. Not as an adventurer, but as a person. He probably had me take up the role of a trainer, to help more, maybe to get me interacting with others more, but I kept myself distant. Now though, in such a short time I've been pulled into a world I haven't known for centuries. I have a family now, and I actually recognize it, unlike when I was with Zeus. It makes me regret the past keenly. I don't want to repeat it. I must do what I can to make the future safe as can be. To do that, I need know what has been happening around me while I've been ignoring the world." "You've thought hard about this. Like I said, it started when I met Althea again in the dungeon. Since joining Belle and Hestia, I've truly started to understand it. It sounds like your new familia has really grown on you then. I can understand that. Even to me, they are ones that I would call friends without hesitation." Aiden smiled softly. "They are special. Motivated in a way that the great names of the past were, and as loyal as they come. You and Arenas could have pointed us toward no better familia to join, and you have my thanks for that, as well as whatever else you could ask of me. I only ask that you tell me, what is the state of this world, and how did it get here? I can tell that the peace Zeus and Hera established is no longer present. There is a facade of peace, but it's unsettled, not held up by absolute authority, but capricious power. I could almost taste the decay of the city, walking around before I came here. You are aware from Althea of Evelys, and their work prior to her. Fall in the dungeon? I am, and of Sekhmet's doings in the world, to an extent, thanks to some of our new members. I have known of her evil since my days with Osiris, but if you can tell me more, I would hear it. You wish me to speak specifically of the evil and chaos in the world, but what else? That is my primary concern. Actually, anything that can aid in my goal, I would like to know. The locations of the harbingers, holy relics, anything you know. I will start with the issue of evil, then, from the evils, involvement in Orario after their failure with Erebus, Zald, and Althea. Fels finished telling the story of the Evolus organization as he knew it, and had described the state of the world in its precariousness. The elf's isolation was unchanged, but the abandoned world was unknown to the man completely. He had turned grim at knowing the state of Telskura and Rakia, while frowning at his mentions of the Empire and the Far East. He continued to describe issues known to him among the various, smaller states and regions in the world, and finished describing the last news he had from the Dragon Valley. All said, the world was in a somewhat stable equilibrium. Any event could spark conflict, and lesser disasters were spread across the breadth of civilization. That said, the impact of Aiden returning and being announced as a level 7 had begun to ripple within the sources Fels had access to, seemingly worsening the stability of the world even further. I wonder if I shouldn't have simply returned after rescuing Althea those years ago. You are here now, my friend, what will you do with it? Fels felt chills run down his bare spine at the steeled look Aiden gave him. What I ought do now. The Evolus are but remnants or memories in Orario, after Ryu's rampage. But they may yet be active in the world, especially if Sekhmet is a patron or member. If I am to act with Aurena's blessings, we must first ensure Orario's safety, which will be accomplished if I achieve the alliance I seek. I am already well on the way to that, so beyond that point. I must ask what you and Lord Aurenas know of the Xenos. Surprise made the immortal man stiffen for a moment, before he sighed. The others of Hestia Familia informed you, then? During our map quest, we found what they thought might have been a hidden village. The part of frontier was barren, but he mentioned that it could serve them in the future. Needless to say, Bell told Althea and I about the Xenos before we ventured there, so that we wouldn't attack them. Good. It seems Bell continues to show why he is more than worthy of keeping that secret. Fels nodded in satisfaction. To answer you, the Xenos began to appear shortly before the battle, with the one-eyed black dragon. Intelligent monsters, little different from the other mortal races. They are hunted by adventurer and monster alike, with no home beyond the pockets of frontier within the dungeon. They are truly allies. In exchange for supplies through Aurenas and myself, they aid us by eliminating irregulars when we are unable to dispatch adventurers to do so. They also help with more sensitive tasks, such as investigating the man-made labyrinth. Gnosis. Aiden chuckled a bit to himself. It's almost like they are extensions of the Aurenas Familia, in a way that isn't inaccurate. Over the years, they have become more and more common. Their primary objective is collecting their brethren before they can become problematic for adventurers. I see. As irregulars, they would be particularly powerful, indeed, and similarly to other irregulars and adventurers, they can grow stronger with time, though by consuming magic stones, like other irregulars instead of gaining excellia as adventurers do. In other words, they would be the perfect ally to free up the adventurers of Orario to journey out and confront the dragon? Perhaps, if not for the public image of it, tamed monsters have become acceptable to the public, which is a small miracle after the Dark Age when they were used against the city, but that is a far cry from allowing the Xenos to act with autonomy as monster adventurers. I should mention though, since you now know about them, that I was actually able to finally get that useless magic to work, and it was one of the Xenos that I used it on. Aiden smiled in surprise. Now that's a shock, but excellent news. That magic existed for a reason, but even I was beginning to lose faith that its utility would never show itself. Still, I didn't think it would be so easy to turn the Xenos to our advantage, but it leaves me something to chew on. Beyond them, I will turn my attention abroad. Rakia is first. If we can bring Ares and their ruler into the fold, a good deal can be avoided quickly, even though they wouldn't pose much of a challenge for most on our account. Making them allies will take pressure away from the surrounding areas, potentially under their threat. The issue is that doing so will earn the ire of the elves. Still, we would have it regardless. I think I will have to deal with that myself. Hopefully Riveria can aid me in pacifying them. If it comes to that, there are many who would follow if she simply asked, though. If she were to take the crown for true, you would have your alliance with no doubt. Easier said than done, even if she wished to. Her father would have to officially designate her, and I doubt he will unless she marries a suitor he approves of. Moving on then, right. From there, we recruit strength from Telskura. If possible, I would also like to investigate this abandoned world at that time. Then we move forward to the Far East, and then Altina, and the free lands before the Empire. I feel like a show of force will be inevitable there, though I wish to avoid it. Once we have secured what help we can there, we come back to the continent and go to the entrance to the Dragon Valley, which will be our last source to find allies. Once we are all together, we will train as hard as possible, exploiting the dungeon and confronting the harbingers to earn as much excelia as possible. We will grow as strong as feasible, as quickly as we can, then make haste to face the dragon. We are on a limit of time, and have been since the beast was created. We have no choice but to become powerful enough to lay it low, and tackle the challenge that awaits us head-on. Did the hieroglyphs down below mention the final challenge? Yes, but you've already guessed it, I'm sure, a black gate, holding back untold masses of demons more powerful than all the monsters in the dungeon. Naturally the end of that would be a Demon King, demons. The dungeon continues to unfurl more mysteries. I would like you to fully document the hieroglyphs for me, if you could. A second pair of eyes analyzing the text would be helpful. I'm sure I can do that. I already planned a single trip to the bottom of the dungeon after I had everyone in Orario on our side in the matter, as well as our potential allies abroad. Going to the 100th floor will be an experience all of the first-class adventurers will need to grow, and they needed to understand. Indeed, in this case, I shall give you the only piece of advice I can think of: don't allow yourself to be close-minded in your search for strength and allies. Trust your new familia, Herreris. I will. Not long after they had fully rested, Hestia familia received a notice that they had been approved to move forward with their mapping assignment, and would need to take a group of 3 guild employees through the mapped areas to prove the authenticity of their work. Despite being a bit annoyed by all of the recent level-up paperwork from the Hestia familia, Rose, Ina, and Misha were still ready to move out with them. Being that guild members were going into the dungeon, nothing less than the familia's full strength was acceptable, so the 3 women were surrounded by a large group of high-level and above adventurers, including 4 first-class members. This calmed their anxiety tremendously, and allowed them to work serenely with Lily as they advanced. The work went quickly, despite the nature of it, and they made their way down to the middle floors in good time, where they took a break before pushing on. The last leg stretched on, but eventually they made it to the Goliath room, at which point the mission was complete. Well, I can't believe we did it all in a day, but I can say that this work is perfectly truthful and good quality to boot, Ms. Arde. We can submit this to the final stage of approval, and after that you shall be notified and given your reward. Rose spoke to the Paolum as they rested on the 17th floor. The pair were approached by Aiden, who nodded when they acknowledged him. I have prior arrangements now that the mission is complete, so I'll be heading on down deeper. Miss Vannet, Rose curled her lips in a slight frown. Losing one of the first-class members for the return journey was a risk, but she didn't feel like she could object, since nobody but the newest Familia members had needed to do anything to keep the monsters away from them. Very well, now that the work is finished, we can go straight back. Anyway, he smiled at her. Thank you, my captain will keep you 3 safe the whole way. He nodded again before continuing on into the Goliath room. Having rested themselves, the rest quickly pulled together and headed back up to the surface. Chapter end notes: we have quite some weather going on in the country, from record rainfall shattering drought in California to severe thunderstorms in the south. Well, At least we have an update ready for any who wish to read on. Stay safe, everyone. R.H. Undercroft AA. Futatabi O. Chapter Summary. Yet another adventure is underway, and Bell resolves to make the effort to get closer to some of his more reclusive Familia members. Chapter Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Familia Oratoria Adamici Fanfiction. Chapter 23. Futatabi Ah. It took you longer than I thought. Sorry about that. Had to come down with everyone for the mapping work. Ah, you finished it, then? Not bad. It'll be useful for the lower level ones, even though some will probably make foolish decisions with it. That much is out of our hands. The guild has a complete map to the 18th, that's the main point. Are you ready? Of course. Without another word, Aiden and Otter left the under resort, making their way straight down into the deep levels of the dungeon. The two men spoke less than Heriris' last trip with Bell, but it was to their nature. Aiden didn't need to advise the other man on this battle like he did with Bell's challenge. Otter had faced Baylor before, and was capable of beating him. He only needed some small level of support so that he could fight at his fullest. On the way, the massive Boaz needled his teacher about his past and plans for the future, saying that his goddess didn't speak much on the Donatus, so Heriris indulged him, answering his questions. It seemed that Loki had clued her own Familia, or at least the executives, in on the truth about his situation, and now that they and Otter would almost certainly all be involved with him in the last grand quest, he felt obligated that everyone be on the same page. In a way, it was a show of trust, but it was also a choice as a teacher, to help the man relax into the little details while he truly focused on the fight ahead. Aiden handled all of the monsters up to the point where Baylor waited, having already spawned with a waiting group of Fomoirs. This let a fresh Otter go forward to meet the challenge. Good luck, young un. He sent the man off. I'll be watching you. He smiled as Otto continued silently, and the battle began in earnest. On the surface, Bell and the others completed the return and safely escorted Rose, Ina, and Misha to the guild building just to be safe. Thank you, Bell. Everyone. Ina waved with a smile. We'll take it from here. As soon as we have the word, you'll be notified of the completion of your hard work. Her words caused the group to cheer, knowing that the only thing that waited for them now was compensation for the job, which was supposed to be considerable. Bidding the workers goodbye after exchanging their loot, Hestia Familia left. Some of them had errands or things to do out in town, and broke off as they went back, but most went straight home. Mikoto and Oriana had planned a short training session with most of them, and the others intended on taking the rest of the day off. Bell, though, had something he wanted to try, but also one he needed to do. Two birds with one stone, as his mind formed an idea to tackle the issues at once. Miss Althea, would you mind coming with me to the upper floors of the dungeon? Captain, I don't mind, but what is it you wish to do? He had approached the other white-haired member of the Familia besides himself and Love. She was very quiet, and he had not gotten to know her as well as the others who had joined them in the past couple of months. He wanted to rectify that, or at least try. Well, I wanted to test out my new magic in the dungeon. I haven't tried it yet, but honestly, I'm really excited to test it out. Would you come with me? Of course. She gave him a small smile and followed him, without another word. Unaware of the eyes following them, the pair walked back to the dungeon entrance. It was true that Bell wanted to test the Selim Veil magic he had received on his level up, and having Althea there would ensure that nothing bad would happen, even though he would stay in the upper floors of the dungeon. They arrived on the 10th floor, which he planned to use to hide his practice, since the fog would obscure the view of onlookers. Rage, wrath of heaven. He spoke the short chant softly, and bolts of lightning sprung into being, covering his whole body as he could see, crossing it like a living set of clothes, moving and jumping about. He already had a good grasp of his first-class abilities, so he could tell that this magic was improving his skills even farther. Smiling widely, he shot off like the lightning he was wrapped in, taking out numerous monsters with ease before they even registered his presence. He marveled at his form as he raced around the floor. It was almost like he had leveled up. There was still something to test, though. He slowed to attract a large group of monsters until he was surrounded by a sizable horde before shouting, "Distal!" In a storm-like flurry, all of the electricity covering his body exploded out omnidirectionally into the monsters around him, making the whole crowd of them erupt into an ash cloud as magic stones and drop items fell to the ground, littering the dungeon floor as he breathed. Impressive. It seems to boost your abilities overall, but particularly your agility, his companion mused as she approached him from her place observing from afar. You seem to have grasped the fundamentals of using your new magic. Thank you, Miss Althea. It almost feels like when Haruheim casts her boost on me. Really, it feels amazing, and my mind doesn't feel that drained, even though I used the secondary chant. An enhancement-type magic of that nature likely won't drain you quickly, especially at your level and ability. You also seem to have an affinity for short-chant elemental magics. I suggest using your firebolt while your Selim Veil is active. Alright. They spent a little while in the dungeon testing out his power, but he called an end to it before long, wanting to go elsewhere, since he had trained with her before. He decided to take her to one of his favorite bookstores, a place he was sure she would appreciate for its quiet solitude, and get some Jagamurukan after. Lily was suspicious. After they had gotten back home, she had waited a bit, but when Master Bell didn't come back after going off with Miss Althea, she decided to tell Lady Hestia. That was why she was suspicious. Their goddess would obviously have overreacted to the news that Belle had gone off alone with the attractive woman, or she normally would have. Instead, she accepted the news calmly, saying that they would get back when they would, and the two were powerful enough together that they wouldn't need to worry about them. That wasn't what Lily was worried about, obviously, and that their goddess wasn't worried was utterly strange. Of course they were strong, but that wasn't the issue, and for Hestia to not see that was enough to leave her gobsmacked. She knew Haruheim was a bit apprehensive about this development, but was handling things how she normally would with her slightly flustered daydreaming. Lily could admit that she had been hesitant about the recent growth of their familia, despite the good things it brought with it. They were much more secure now, and had experienced members to guide the newer and future ones. Everyone got along well. It was nothing like Soma Familia was when she was a member. Still, one thing stuck out glaringly in her mind. Aside from their increased tax burden, there were too many women. It wasn't like she had a problem with any of them specifically, but there was too much potential in them stealing away Master Bell's affections, that's all. Althea was particularly dangerous in that regard to Lily's mind. The woman had a very similar air about her to the Sword Princess, who they all knew Belle was smitten with. However, Althea was in their familia, closer to him. Should things go sour with Ace Wallenstein, Althea Massalis might well prove to be his perfect type, waiting to accept his broken heart with open arms. She shook her head. They had an alliance with Loki Familia now, so it seemed likely that Belle would only get closer with Ace, and she had already accepted that Belle would probably not see her that way she sees him. Her thoughts were interrupted by an announcement from the entrance. "We're home." She walked back to see Belle and Althea carrying a large number of. "Are those all Jagamurukan, Master Bell?" "Lily, hi." "Yeah. We went to get some to eat, and decided to get enough to bring back for everyone. Could you tell them?" "Yes, Master Bell." The battle was intense, but ultimately he succeeded. Having given everything he had, he relied on the other man to ensure his safety after the conclusion of the fight against the floor boss. You may be beat right to hell, but victory is only sweeter for the pain, isn't it? Yes, it feels quite good. Finally, the warlord and Heriris had ascended without stopping to the under resort, the former basking in his success even as his wounds began to slowly recover. "I've no doubt that you will have gone to the next level from this. For now, continue training as you see fit, but as soon as I have gathered about all the support I can in Orario, I will arrange an expedition for all of us to solidify our alliance, train, and gain experience for everyone all at once. What do you have in mind to do that? I'm going to take you all down to the 100th floor. Obviously. Otter looked at the other man in plain shock. It was enough to make him laugh. It will be enough if we are all first class in strength, and it will be what is necessary to push everyone, and make them realize where they need to be, and exactly what will be required of us. After everyone in Orario that I can recruit is on board, I will travel abroad to seek out more allies for us. No time to dawdle. Only then can we arrange and complete this venture to train in the far deeps of the dungeon. Indeed, how long do you think I have to train until this expedition? I'm not sure. Maybe a few of months? I'd like to talk to all of the first and second class adventurers in the city if possible. After I have an understanding of who all will accept, we can move forward. Most of my time will be in traveling outside the city, but I will assign you all training before I leave. That isn't much time to grow, don't worry about that. You and Loki's kids will get most of your experience on that expedition, since the group will heavily rely on your strength past the 70th floor. I will try to take as much of a backseat as I can, which means you four in particular will hold a heavy burden. We don't even know what challenges await us on the 60th floor, let alone so far down I may not fight unless it's necessary, but I will coach you all on the way down, of course. You will know more or less what to expect from the dungeon, and I know the main route already. Those are the major issues, already taken care of, I suppose. Should I try to convince the first class and second class members of my familia of your intentions? It will be difficult, but we have many powerful adventurers in our number, enough to be called the strongest familia in Orario. Yes, if you think it the best way to convince them. If I need to speak to them, I can, but if they adamantly refuse, it isn't worth strong-arming them into complying. We should only accept those who willingly aid us. Besides, it would be wise to leave some strength behind in Orario in case the dungeon does something unforeseen when we go to battle the dragon, or heavens forbid if we fail in the quest. Otter hummed at his mentor's words, before shaking his head. We won't fail. In this too, just like with Zald and Evelus, we will surpass Zeus and Hera. You're right, of course. Well, I'm going to head back above ground. Stay in contact if anything comes up. I will. Mr. Aiden arrived back at the Familia home in time for a late supper, which was joined by his captain and a couple others. Despite the company, Bill noticed that the man was even more quiet than usual. He was eating more slowly, and seemed tuned out of the conversation over the food. Keeping his thoughts to himself for now, he resolved to speak to him in the morning. Otter King, level 7-8, strength, S999, SS 1002, I0, endurance, S999, SS 1003, I0, dexterity, S991, S997, I0, agility, S989, S996, I0, magic, D566, D599, I0, magic spell slots, 1, Hildesvini, a powerful magic which manifests as an explosive force bent to the will of the caster. Its effect scales with the caster's status. Chant, Silver Moon's Mercy, the Golden Wilderness. This body is destined for the wild boar of the war. Run through, carry the goddess will. Hildesvini, skills, Vanna Argenture. Vanna Argenture allows Otter to beastify, raising all of his abilities by an extremely large amount, and has an active trigger. Every use drains his stamina and mind by a large amount. Stortus Otter, when Otter continues to fight, Stortus Otter allows him to use the healing power and spirit healing development abilities, and strengthens all of his development abilities. The condition for the skill is in proportion to his status. Available skill, Master der Siege. After failing to slay the Rex, Otter accomplished his goal of killing Balor on his own. This skill will greatly boost all of Otter's abilities when fighting against goat or ram-type monsters, similar to the Rex, Balor. Development abilities. Hunter E, D, Abnormal Resistance E, Magic Resistance F, E, Crush G, F, Strong Body G, F. Healing power, spirit healing, available abilities to choose from, stamina I, magi, chapter end notes. Things are starting to move forward now, so I'll post another chapter tonight before taking another break while I work this weekend. This will be all for today. Next part coming soon, so please like and subscribe to be notified as the next part arrives.